Would like to say good morning to those of you who thought it not robbery to join me this morning in a little bit of teaching. I have not taught in a while. There have been too many other distractions that have been going on, but I have heard the comments and some of the responses that I've gotten from folks asking me to teach again on some of the things that you are being blinded to. This is not my normal commentary where I espouse my opinions. This morning I will be dealing very shortly here, just for a little bit, with some facts. I am going to share some information with you. I share this information with you on this platform because you're easily reachable. However, my preferred medium of instruction is in person. So if I am anywhere in your city or vicinity, it would behoove you to break from the norm and come and entertain some actual teaching that is not screamed at you from street corners or by those people who only know just enough to be dangerous. I would like to spend a little bit of time this morning to encourage you to do your own critical thinking and research after I'm gone. I want you all to stay with me as I take you through a rather deep topic, but I'll start by posing a question. And that question is, in the last 10 years, 15 to be exact, I'll go and give you 5 more. We've all been excited about the rise of the internet. For me to have the ability to broadcast in this quality from my suite here in Orlando, Florida, and talk to the world is a capability that we did not have a very short time ago, which makes it very difficult for us to validate historical occurrences that have happened. Back in the day, we used to just have to go by word of mouth, and you had to believe what you were told. Today, we live in a society where people can go and instantly pull up pictures, video, text, recordings, and pull back that from the past and use it against you. This is the society that we have grown comfortable in. Our children are now born into a society where they are privy to instant information. Crazy Obilla, all hell, welcome. That is why nowadays we have children who are just as versed on topics that we used to withhold from them in their growth, because we figured that it would not be beneficial at that stage of their development to know this information. But through the use of these devices, every child now has access to that information when they don't have the mental wherewithal to know what to do with it. So I'm going to start my teaching this morning, and those of you all who tuned in thinking this was going to be a hip hop moment, those of you all who tuned in thinking that I was going to be the angry black man this morning, that is not what is happening for a little bit of your time this morning. I want to put something on your mind, give you something to think about what's being done to you right now. You heard me speak before about silent weapons. I want you to think of a silent weapon just like you think of a regular weapon, a gun. A gun fires a bullet. That bullet makes a noise. The bullet traverses a distance. It impacts a target. And when it does, it destroys the target, sometimes killing the target or disabling the target. A silent weapon does all of the same things, but you don't see it. You don't hear it. You feel the impact, but you're not sure what you're feeling, and it can leave you destroyed. So I'm going to read something to you, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to kind of flip over to the situation in South Africa, in case you all are still not aware of something fantastic that is happening in the motherland right now. All of Africa has become united. All 50 odd countries have become united against South Africa. We'll get into that later. But before we do that, you need to understand that even what's happening in South Africa is the result of silent weapons. So let me read something to you just to show you why you shouldn't be too happy about this internet thing, why it was created, why we have this platform, why you now have social media, and why we now live in this instant information society. Silent weapon technology has evolved from the operations research called the OR, which was a strategic and tactical methodology that was developed under the military management under President Eisenhower. It was developed in England during World War II, and the original purpose of Operation Research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies. Listen to that last piece. Limited military resources against foreign enemies. In other words, when you're out of bullets, when you're out of gasoline, when you're out of soldiers, how do you still fight your enemy? It was soon recognized by those in a position of power. The Council on Foreign Relations, you've heard that name before, and that the same methods might be used for totally controlling a society, but better tools were necessary. Remember, this is back in 1940, 50 something. Social engineering. If you're not familiar with the term social engineering, I would encourage you to learn that term, because we are being socially engineered at every turn, whether you know it or not. And you can't put your finger on it, but you can feel it. A lot like the movie The Matrix. And I'm not going to get into that piece, but it's exactly where I'm going. Social engineering, which is the analysis and the automation of a society, requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly changing economic information. Economic information. So a high-speed, computerized data processing system was necessary, which would race ahead of the society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. Let me break that down to you. Some time ago, they realized that in order to control us, they needed to create a system, a computerized system that was capable of processing mass amounts of data, images, words, sounds, thoughts, that could be fed into computers using artificial intelligence to predict what that society would do. If you know what a society is going to do, then you can control what that society does. There's a movie not too long ago called Live, Die, Repeat. They had to change the name because it was stupid. It was Live, Die Again. If you remember the movie, it was about a gentleman who was faking his way through the military, and there was an alien invasion of Earth, and he was sent in to attack these aliens, and he ended up killing one. Well, when he killed it, he inherited the power to control time, which is what the aliens were doing. He could live every day over and over again, but he could remember what was going to happen. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow and everything that happened today, you already knew it was going to happen. You knew who was going to say what, and you could outsmart them. The idea was an enemy that you know everything about. You can defeat them at every turn. This is the same thing that they did to us. So a high-speed computerized data processing system was necessary, which could race ahead of the society and predict when society would arrive at the point where they got it. Relay computers were too slow, but the electronic computer, which came out in 1946, two people actually invented that. One was J. Presper Eckert, and the other was John McCauley. They filled the bill. They were part of the project. The next breakthrough was the development of the simplex method of linear programming in 1947 by a mathematician by the name of George B. Dantzig, another person involved in this project. Then in 1948, the transistor, which was invented by J. Bardeen and W.H. Brayton and W. Shockley, that promised the great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. Look at the power you're holding in your hand right now with this device. This is nothing but a micro supercomputer, and we all have one now. Follow me. And with these three inventions under their direction, those in the positions of power strongly suspected that it was possible for them to control the whole world with the push of a button. So I'm going to jump ahead now. We're not going to talk about how we got here. You've all taken the ride. You're all on the internet. You're all on social media. You're all inside the web. What sits at the center of a web? A spider. The bigger the web, the bigger the spider. Now, what I'm going to read to you next are the exact words, and I want you to think about everything around you. In order to achieve a totally predictable economy, the low-class elements of the society must be brought under total control, must be housebroken, trained, and assigned a yoke and a long-term social duties from a very early age before they have an opportunity to question the propriety of the matter, before they start thinking, why are we doing this? Already have them at a young age. In order to achieve this conformity, the lower class family unit must be disintegrated by a process of increasing preoccupation of the parents and the establishment of government-operated daycare centers for the occupationally orphaned children. Think about what they're doing to society and how the government is telling you how to raise your children. I will read this to you again. I want it to sink in. We're teaching this morning. This is information for you. You have to be housebroken, trained, and assigned a job and a long-term social duty from a very early age before you have an opportunity to question what the hell is going on. And in order to achieve this conformity, in order for everybody to go along, the lower class families, those that what we call the working poor, those of you all that no matter what you do to try to move to the next economic level, there's always something that seems to happen to keep you right there. And those of you all who have broken through and think that you have arrived, but you just can't break into that 1%. We're taught to be good kids, go to school and get a job and get a degree and become a good worker. We're not taught that no, you don't want to work for somebody else. You want your own. No, you don't have to be beholden to somebody else. You want to build your own wealth. You want to build your own systems. You're not taught that. You're taught to be a good slave. So all of you all who are proud of your degrees that are cum laude and say, I've got this, you are a slave. A very well-trained one, and one that has been stamped by the master. You got a degree. Follow me, y'all. Listen to this and listen very carefully. The quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the most ignorant, listen to what they're saying, the most ignorant, isolating the inferior class from the superior class is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. With such an initial handicap, even bright lower class individuals have little hope, if any hope, of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintaining some measure of social order, peace, and tranquility for the ruling upper class. I got to let that sink into your spirit for a second. Because what I've just told you, that you've already been cast into a system from day one, and that you have been given an inferior education since day one, no matter how smart you think you are. And even if you are smart, you will never, ever break out of the cast that you were given, because your ignorance to those things you weren't taught will always be your handicap, and you won't even know it. These are silent weapons. These weapons have been designed to destroy a free-thinking democracy, a free-thinking society. Everything else you see are bells and whistles. So don't sit there and think, oh, not me. Yes, you too. So when people hear me say whenever you're ready, I'm not talking about just fighting people. I am not talking about protesting. I am not talking about availing yourselves to certain systems. Whenever you all are ready to wake up from the matrix and tear down that which is built around you, y'all let me know, because I've been awake for a while. If there had to be a personification of Neo and a personification of Morpheus, I would be Morpheus. You all are my Neos. But they got to reinforce that in you. That's why they're making a Matrix 4. They want somebody, maybe you'll get it. I don't know. If you want to know where I got these quotes, I'm reading out of this book that I keep encouraging you all to get a hold of. Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. Whenever books like this come out, if you notice, the establishment is quick to try to say, he's crazy. Don't listen to him. This is wild speculation. Remember, the devil's greatest trick was convincing the world that he didn't exist. This is stone cold truth. If you're a critical thinker and you read this stuff, it will make sense to you. But if you listen to the construct around you, it's a lot like the folks who tell you that when you see a videotape of a black man being choked to death by, a police officer, that don't believe what you see on the tape. We don't really know what we're looking at. If you buy into that bullshit, then you are being kept in the very system that I just described to you. The purpose of the internet and the purpose of all this social media was to create a digitally expansive system. To those of you all who have just joined me, again, I have been asked to teach. I don't teach like I used to because of so much stuff that's happening in the world. But at the request of a lot of emails, I decided to teach this morning. And I'm glad that you considered it not robbery to spend some of your time with me rather than chasing the ignorance that has been perpetuated across the internet to keep you asleep. So let's talk about what's going on in South Africa for a second. This should be breaking news. The last time the entire continent of Africa was this united happened when they were fighting against apartheid in South Africa. So, what's going on now? Why is all of Africa united? And why don't the ADOS here in America know anything about it? And why don't the immigrants here in America of color not know anything about this? Because the propaganda controlled mainstream media knows that if these images get repeated across the world, their problems are going to explode, not just out of Africa, but here in the United States, in South America. The disaster in the Bahamas is a continued example of the ignorance and the willful hatred of Neander people against Negroid people. If this was happening in France, there would be a natural outcry. There'd be resources pouring in from all over the world. There'd be GoFundMe accounts. There'd be nonstop telethons. They would roll Jerry Lewis out. We would be inundated with billboard signs. There'd be little kids knocking at your door. And you guys got to know what this says right here. Wait. But before you say no, that's what the kids would be saying to you, trying to get money out of you. But because this is black folks that are being affected, because these are descendants of black people who fought for their freedom and got it, they're on their own. And even though there was just a 20-minute plane flight from Miami, Florida, when we could have boats and planes taking off all day from Miami just doing drops, they said, well, we can't go in because the airport's destroyed. Well, we do what we do in the military. You put them in bundles and parachutes and you drop. Trust me, the people will know what to do. But they're not doing that. Oh, we're sending in the Navy. So you're sending in the military. But when the church burned over in France, it wasn't the military you sent. It was your money you sent. It was your own children you sent. It were people, missionaries. And you wonder why this is happening. It goes right back to what I talked about at the beginning. Silent weapons. Silent weapons are psychological weapons. Silent weapons are systems put into place to make you do the work yourself. They'll light the fuse, but they don't have to worry about who's going to carry the fire to the gasoline. You guys do it for them. South Africa is now being targeted by all of the rest of Africa because of the very simple fact that, if you all remember, not too long ago, and I said this on another one of my lives, but I'm teaching right now. I'm going to teach a little bit. That we thought it was a new day on the continent. If you don't know anything about African history, the white folks have always, and they do this everywhere they go, they come to the coast and they push in and they claim that as theirs. And then they war with the rest of the indigenous population until they can call it their own. You want to know why they call it Wall Street in New York? It's not because of the financial district. It's because when they first invaded that island, which is Manhattan, the blacks that were there fought them so viciously, they had to put up a wall to keep them from killing them and driving them off of the island. What you now know as Central Park used to be a black neighborhood. And they tore it all down and they turned it into a park. And most people today don't even realize that that is why it's called Wall Street, and that the Manhattan Native Americans that lived there were just as black as I was. And they committed genocide against them. So everywhere in the world that they go, they managed to press in to the coastlines. And that's as far as they could get into Africa. So South Africa is nothing more than occupied land. And a few whites have gotten down there, and they've been down there so long they actually think they're Africans. But they quick to scream for us to go home. Pardon my language, and I don't normally say this in my teachings, but get all the fucking way out of here with that. Not buying it. Anyway, what's happening now is, if you remember, there was a short time ago, there was a land grab going on where the descendants of those who had their land taken said, we want our land back. The white folks got scared. Oh my God, they're coming to take it back. We don't want to buy it back. We're going to take it back. You see what they said? You're not going to sell us what's already ours. The same way when you go to try to buy a house or to buy a piece of land, you got some people who are occupying the land trying to tell you what you got to do to get what already belonged to you. Take it. So they decided they're going to take their land back. And everybody was like, oh, here we go. At the same time, the African Union was under new leadership. They were talking about, they supported this, and that from now on that they were going to control how Africa was being represented to the world. They were not going to let mainstream media keep showing you pictures of jungles and naked dancing people like that's all there was in Africa. They do that for a reason. Silent weapons. They do that so that when they start talking about, oh, we're just taking the resources, we're mining, that you don't think there are any cities, that there are any malls, that there aren't any skyscrapers, that there aren't any kings and queens, that there aren't any kingdoms. So when they go in to destroy them, you won't think anything's wrong. So far from the truth. Well, within a year or so, things have changed. All of a sudden, all of the problems that we had here have popped up in Africa, in South Africa. Now we got crime, we got high unemployment, there's all these problems. The same things that drive people into survival mode. Well, unfortunately for the white folks, it backfired on you. And I am happy to report that my African brothers and sisters have already reached a point of where they're saying, we ready. And that ready started about a week ago. And the mainstream media, not only did they not report on it, they can't, because if they set foot in that area, they will be killed. The killings that are happening against foreigners. The killings that are happening against immigrants to Africa who have come in with that same bullshit, like over here that y'all put up with. They're not having that. So they are now killing them. The rioting has started. They are burning and looting foreign stores. They are attacking and burning and killing any foreigner they can get their hands on. The media is not going to tell you this. And here come the good part. The rest of Africa has joined them. Now, the biggest economy in Africa, next to South Africa, is Nigeria. And if you know anything about Nigerians, well, they're an interesting group because you got half that, they'll swindle you, you know what I'm saying, and brother. But you got the other half that's like, look, we got this. We don't need no help. We don't need your style. We don't need your culture. We want to take it back to where we was. So all them brother types that lined up with the South Africans, they're killing them too. I told you all this and I'm going to say it to you again. The Haitians did the same thing before they fought for their independence. They killed every black person that was loyal to the crown. That way, when they went to the crown saying, you know what, we done had enough of this, we out. There was nobody in their camp. They looked like them that was going, no, let's just wait a minute now. Let's just calm down. Take this boy outside and set his ass on fire. We're not having that shit. We want our freedom. We want our land back. We want everything back. The fuck out of here. That's what they did. And that's what they're doing in Africa right now. Now, let me give y'all some facts. This backlash has spreading all across Africa. It's coming in many forms now. Pop stars have announced boycotts. Air Tanzania has suspended flights to Johannesburg, which is the capital of South Africa. Madagascar and Zambia are refusing to send their soccer teams. Nigeria has recalled its ambassador and pulled out of the major economic forum. They're done with them. South Africa is facing a backlash after rioters in and around Johannesburg started targeting immigrants from other African countries. Think about what I'm saying to you. Y'all keep thinking that if it goes down here in the United States, that it's just going to be black against white. Or let's say I'm going to be real, it might be black against Latino. Or it might be, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be different groups. But you're going to have some black folks out there. Wait a minute, what are you doing? You're tearing down everything. They're tearing up the place. Oh my God, they're going to be on that bullshit. And we're going to put a bullet right between your eyes and set your ass on fire. Because you don't forgot what team you on. Somebody say teach, Jay. So anyway, the news is not going to tell you this. Okay? Y'all got to remember something. Africans across the continent once rallied behind South Africans in their struggle to defeat the apartheid government, which was finally replaced in elections about 25 years ago. Now, some Africans find themselves in the unfamiliar position of protesting the very actions of the same communities in South Africa that they once stood in solidarity with. What happened? Silent weapons. Silent weapons were used against them. And now they're responding to the silent weapons. How many of you all listening to me right now say, you know what he's saying? I thought that the other day. Or I'll say something and you go, you know what? I feel the same way he do. We all feel it. Can't put our hands on it. You ever have a white person try, well, what exactly is racism? They want to see if you can put it in context. And all you can do is give examples of the symptoms of it. But you can't put your hand on it. You can't go, this racism right here. See, this racism. You can't do that. Because those are silent weapons. Now, the only time we've seen this type of cooperation of African countries in terms of a backlash was in terms of supporting the anti-apartheid movement. The only difference is, and I'm going to share this with you, you should be happy about this, that I'm saying this to you. We have always been a warrior race. We have been some of the most vicious, violent, imaginative, destructive people when it comes to war on this planet. You have no idea what you are capable of. Your anger is terrifying. That is why the angry black man and the angry black woman are the most feared people. Have a meltdown on your job and watch what happens. White guy lose it. You know, hey, Bob, we need you to sit down, take a couple of minutes, breathe. Let me lose it. Let me start kicking shit over. And goddamn it, I ain't having it. And start smacking up people and talking about what I'm going to do. And then they go like, he's got to be joking. No, you motherfuckers got me fucked up. Not only am I going to kill everybody in here, I'll burn this motherfucker to the ground. And then I'll find all your families and I'll go to war on you for like 30 years. You're going to lose one person out of your generation for the next 30 years. They don't like people who think like that. Because that's not a person who's conforming to the norm. What's happening in South Africa should send a warning shot to everybody around the world that sooner or later people of color are going to stop caring because they're going to realize that, as I said, in silent weapons, you are placed into a caste system that you can never get out of. And even if you are an exception to the rule, and you're very, very bright, someone like myself, I too have encountered that ceiling. I've found ways around it. But what I've also found is you can break out of it. That's my teaching for this morning on silent weapons. I hope you learned something. I hope it's given you something to think about. That these devices that we are all so proud of are actually fly traps. Remember, they call it a smartphone, but does it make you smarter? Or does it make you a slave to a system where we always know where you are? I'll leave you all with this. Whether you believe in Yahshua, whether you believe in Jehovah, God, no matter what name you give to the Creator, no matter what name, there are three qualities about the Creator that everybody knows. He's all knowing. He's everywhere at once. And he's all powerful. Now think about what they're doing to us as a society. They want to know everything. They want to be everywhere at once. And they want to have all power. And this system right here, and these devices right here, the internet, the cloud architecture, and all of this stuff that it's going to make your life easier. No, it's not. It's going to make you more controllable. This will be the end of my teaching for today. It's been good spending time with you. Hopefully you learned something. I will be back to my old, let me blow the horn and let you know what's going on later on. But I wish you a good day, and I hope I've given you something to think about. And remember, waking up is only the first step. Once you wake up, you got to get up. And a lot of y'all just laying in bed looking at me. Ain't that something? Fight on, Africa. Your boy is there sooner or later. America, what y'all waiting on? What are you waiting on? What y'all waiting on? What are you waiting on?